Good evening, treasure seekers. This is Blake coming to you live from New Mexico, and joining me as always from Washington State, it's Bryn and Cody. How's it going, guys?
You came in hot there. It kind of made me jump.
Oh, sorry.
Keep
Hopefully
everyone
I
on
didn't
there.
scare the audience. My bad.
Someone driving off the road listening to this in their car.
My bad. Busy week?
Doing well.
Yeah.
Well. Had a very busy, very summery weekend, which is all excellent. Just very busy with summer activities.
Not just treasure hunting inside your home and looking in the digital world.
I know. Well, this would be prime time to be getting boots on the ground. So I'm trying my hardest in my spare time to solve this puzzle so I can go boots on the ground, find Pokemon box, but not quite there yet. I told Cody that I felt like I'm getting close.
I know. I got a text that said you told Cody we are just one or two breakthroughs away.
I said I feel like we're getting close. I guess that wasn't that text. I feel like we're a couple light bulb moments away, is I think what I said.
And then
but Cody then said, yeah, he needed... So I'm telling your story now. Go ahead.
You're telling my story?
My story?
Cody's story?
Or Blake's story?
What did
Blake
you
speaking?
What do you think, Cody, when
Blake wasn't even on that side of the conversation?
Yeah, so what do you think, Cody, when Bryn says she's one or two light bulb moments away from the Pokemon box?
Well, what happened was Bryn said, I feel like we're so close to going boots on the ground. I feel like we're so close. And I said, this was after you, Blake and Bryn had a conversation, a longer conversation, kind of picking through some of the finer details of what's been found so far. And when Bryn told me that, I said, does Blake think that too? To get a second opinion. And then that's when Bryn added the caveat in the text and said that she said we're a few light bulb moments or breakthroughs away from being ready to go boots on the ground.
Well, the reason I say that is because I feel like we're getting really close to having identified all the buckets of clues that there are to find in the chapter. Maybe I'm wrong, but I feel like we've identified so many collections of clues that slowly kind of come together once we have little breakthroughs here and there. So I feel like at some point there's going to be a light bulb moment or two where it's like, aha, this is how all these kind of seemingly somewhat unrelated things come together, and that's going to help pinpoint where we need to be looking. And I guess when I say to me, it's not finding the box, but I think if we can find where we're supposed to be looking generally, that's going to be my next big threshold. And then obviously if you find the right spot, then you're going to have to go back through the chapter and use it to then figure out, okay, well, what were the other clues to then make it more precise and find the actual spot, which obviously includes boots on the ground. So anyways, I don't know where we started that conversation, but
you've done a absolute monumental amount of background research, and you've documented really well all of all of the components, right? And so I agree. I feel like you have a lot there and you've made a ton of connections. And now it's just how do you take those connections and activate them and put them to use correctly? So when you have that light bulb moment where you feel like you have kind of a way of using all of that information that you have, I think there's definitely the potential that it all comes together very quickly. That it all kind of falls into place because you've got so much of that background information all queued up and ready to go.
I hope so.
Yeah, I responded that I hope you are correct, that we're close, but I can't say that I'm confident we are. The other problem,
maybe we need to put together all individually our own little boots on the ground go bags for if Bryn solves that we need to deploy quickly.
Yeah. that being said, all of these different themes and buckets of clues, I don't think they all can be correct. And so
No, I agree.
So that's another challenge, is sifting through them and figuring out which ones we think are important and which ones we think we found but probably aren't true, like weren't meant to be clues. So I think there's still quite a bit of work to do. And anyway, I am also fighting for a boots on the ground trip, but we have to have a location before we do that.
Yeah. Well, I think maybe what we do, like Blake and I have had a few good working sessions, and I think maybe once we get through kind of the process that we're going through now, I think we take a step back, and it's like, I think there are some things that or buckets of clues that we've identified that are just inarguably like, yes, these were intended to be clues, and like, I won't say 100% confident, but I'm like very, very confident that this is correct and intended to be used in this way. So then if we can kind of create like tiers of these categories, and if, you just start from the highest level of confidence, that might be a good exercise too when we get there.
I think it might be wise to independently take your list of buckets of clues, your list of themes and types of clues, and give it, like, I know them probably a little bit better than Cody does, but give them to me, give them to Cody, and we all independently rank order that list and see what rises to the top and what falls to the bottom as a first pass at that. We can debate after that, but it'd be really good to have more of a blind approach to this, I think.
Yeah, I like that. I agree. Let's do that. We should do that.
All right.
Yeah. Well, all that to be said is we were not boots on the ground this weekend, and it would have been beautiful weather to do that, at least around here. So hopefully, I'm getting antsy that fall is right around the corner, which then gets pretty dicey really quick. So I'm fighting for our boots on the ground while the weather is still reasonable.
Excellent. You've done a yeoman's work, Bryn.
And it certainly seems like, I was just going to say, it certainly seems like if we go boots on the ground, it's probably going to be Pokemon box. That's definitely what it's been leaning towards. I know Blake's baby was the past and future box there for a while, but I haven't heard many updates from you on that one, Blake.
Yeah, I'm waiting for the next Dr. Krypton books to drop.
It's good. I've lured him over to Pokemon box, where I feel like our time is best spent in this moment.
All right. So no, I think we discussed before the podcast, we're not confident in a horseshoes and hand grenades today. So we're going to do heavy mailbag, some Discord detectives, and then coincidence of the day, which, I don't know. Coincidence of the day is quite interesting. At least mine, I feel, is a little bit interesting. But it wasn't horseshoes and hand grenades worthy, so that's why it's in coincidence of the day. So apologies to all of the horseshoes and hand grenades fans out there. We are skipping that this week and going straight into the mailbag.
Mailbag. We've got mail.
All right, mailbag number 1 is an email that we got from Kid Lush, which I thought was quite interesting. Hello, Bryn, Cody, and Blake. I usually enjoy the variety of opinions and perspectives presented on the show. However, in standard episode 11, the thought experiment responses to Joe's mailbag segment were misinformed. Repeating a falsity does not make it true and is a disservice to the community at large. Ooh, we're getting a talking to by Kid Lush right now.
That's fine.
At 54 minutes of episode 11, Joe, quote unquote, Joe follows up a little bit later and says, quote, the other thing that reminded me of what that JCB did not know info about the objects he acquired. Researchers ran those down. That suggests to me that the stories about the objects can't have too much directly to do with the puzzle. And then I think this is my quote. So don't put too much stock directly into the treasure items because JCB purchased them without having done the research prior. So that was the part that Kid Lush is kind of giving us a talking to about. He says, Kid Lush says, quite the opposite. The researchers do not exist and are entirely fictitious. These are well-crafted clues that you are clearly missing. So if we go back to the acknowledgement section of There's Treasure Inside, we look at the researcher names that are listed there. And they are Elenia, Rosemarie, Thaddeus, Valeria, and Zoe. So Kid Lush is arguing that those are probably not real people and potentially clues. The objects were likewise chosen for their questionable backgrounds or particular composition. The chosen objects have everything to do with the puzzles. Thoughts? Rebuttals? Questions?
I mean, on one hand, the names that he lists are unique. And he says, it's a Herculean effort of what they contributed. So, like, what was that look, Cody?
It stole my point.
Oh, sorry.
No.
Well, go ahead. I don't have much to say.
I don't even really have much more than that. Sorry, you go ahead, please.
There, unique names. I don't think it's that out of line to think that those are like real people's names. I think maybe where I get hung up the most with that argument is like he said in multiple interviews, like that's just what he did, was like he just had these researchers, and so I guess I don't know why he would lie about that. So maybe I'm missing like what the lying about it component would contribute to the storyline itself, or like the process of solving the puzzle. What would be in it for him? What would that add to this solve? I guess is maybe what I'm confused on.
Mm-hmm.
I think my interpretation of like the thought process behind it is that it's kind of like this coy thing where the names in the book of his quote unquote researchers are like not metaphors, but something similar to that. Like kind of like how we've been talking about like the joy personification. It'd be almost like personification of those names or some other like context in which those names would lead to a clue in some way. And it's almost like those 5 little metaphors are his researchers, and he just wants to keep kind of addressing them or alluding to it because it's a clue. That's kind of my interpretation of that thought process.
If that was like the concept that he was trying to bring into play, though, I feel like the idea of these researchers would have had to been brought up throughout the book. Whereas I feel like we really only learn about the researchers. I mean, does he even speak about them in the introduction? I can't remember, but I feel like we learned about the researchers through just other contexts and interviews.
There was definitely one.
Yeah, there's. I believe it's.
He must have mentioned them in the book if they're also in the acknowledgements.
Right. I know it's mentioned at least once in the book that he hired 5 researchers. Yes. I think it might be a happy medium, right? It might be that there was truly 5 researchers, and he just gave them pseudonyms in the acknowledgements section so that they couldn't be contacted potentially. So I think that's an option. And then the counterpoint to that is I actually had a conversation with Kid Lush in the Discord channel last week, and Patch, who's another user of the Discord, was also online, who said he thinks he's found a couple, if not all, of the researchers. They have a theory. Patch has a theory on who the actual researchers were. So there's like very, very 2 ends of a spectrum here that are being argued at the same time, which is pretty interesting.
And when you say has a theory on who the actual researchers were, you're talking about physical people who literally did research for the book, all
Yes.
very black and white, not metaphorical, figured out who the
Correct.
researchers were. Okay.
Correct. Yep. So
Like, did he give any information on like he found them by name?
yeah,
Like a professional researcher, like with this first name? Okay.
yeah. I believe there's evidence of one of the people that they identified in the Discord still. I'm not gonna post it or anything just because if we're not correct, we don't want people reaching out to this person. But it's an interesting thought exercise to say, should we try to follow up with this theory and reach out to one of these people that is theorized to have been a researcher for Jon Collins-Black? Mm-hmm. You know, we had a little bit of a ethical question from K-Pro last week on one of their episodes about, the unbreakable thread clue, whether or not that's fair game. Mike Calazar certainly said it was fair game. But I guess I'm a little bit gun shy right now because of that.
I would say as far as that specific instance, we simply reached out asking for an interview.
Yes.
And then she just willingly gave up all this information. Like we wouldn't have been pushing for that.
So
like, she just was like, here's all the information. Here you go. So like that was just handed to us.
Yes, we had not specifically asked the illustrator of our Unbreakable Thread any questions at that point, other than we sent an email asking if she would be interested in an interview, and then she spilled all the beans to us. So we had not poked or prodded at all, which I think is a good piece of information.
I think my hesitation with this is like that with the illustrator, we knew that was the illustrator. I think it's maybe a little different to start reaching out to people where it's like, we don't even know if it's the right person.
It's creepy.
It's creepy. Unsolicited. I mean, yeah, I don't know. I wouldn't feel like super great about that.
Okay, fair. Anyway, I thought this was a super interesting topic. Cody, you have some thoughts also.
A couple of my takes was going back to the Herculean effort thing.
Okay.
He says he wants to thank his researchers for their Herculean effort, which I feel like at first I wasn't super on board with the idea of those quote unquote researchers being like something other than exactly what he says they are.
Mm-hmm.
But within the context of that sentence, where he calls them their Herculean efforts, it just really makes me interested in possible links to like, was Hercules Greek or Roman or I don't know, but that kind of old-timey mythology stuff. And I feel like a lot of those names would fit in really well with that kind of stuff. So it feels like it would definitely be, he'd be pointing you in a direction with those names by saying Herculean effort. So I am definitely interested in looking into that more. I also think, and this is kind of, this actually serves two purposes here with the excerpt I'm about to read from the postscript.
Okay.
Where he says, another important point to mention is that throughout this entire process, I did not give anyone I know clues to where I hid any of our 5 treasure boxes. My wife, my children, my parents, my siblings, none of my friends, none of the people mentioned in this book were privy to any proprietary information. So that's probably a useful excerpt when we talk about the moral dilemma of reaching out to people. But the reason I actually was going to bring that up before we even started talking about the moral dilemma stuff is that I kind of feel like the researchers would have been, if they're real, would have been like important enough to have been named more prominently in that list. Like, don't reach out to the researchers that I told you were looking into things for this book. That's just another thing that came to mind.
But I could see like the other people that he's mentioning are, I mean, not like his family, but like you could easily identify the other people that he's saying.
Yeah,
that's true. The researchers are pretty anonymous.
Yeah, that's true. This is another one of those ones where I'm really interested to know what you guys think, and I kind of want like a percentage from both of you of like, on this percent that it's real researchers and this percent that it's some sort of metaphor, and we're supposed to look into these names or words more closely.
Okay. Bryn, you go first.
Ooh, I am 90-10.
90%.
90 that they are real, that he had real researchers. Maybe those aren't their real names. I do think they probably are the real names, but I think what we're probably supposed to be looking into is the Herculean effort. I think that's probably a nod towards a solve, but I still feel confident that these are real people that he hired. Just within all the context of the other interviews that he's given, it just doesn't seem like there's really anything in it for him to be lying about that. And it just truly seemed like he literally needed the assistance from the context that we've heard in interviews.
Yeah, I actually also was going to say 90% confident that the 5 researchers were real people that helped Jon Collins-Black learn about the artifacts he acquired for this treasure. Cody?
All right. I had a bunch of different numbers come to mind, but they were all on the side of not real names, not real researchers.
Really?
Really?
Interesting.
Yeah.
I'm surprised coming from you, too.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I
don't
mean,
know.
you're
Why is
usually
that
the
so
most
surprising?
like what's in it for him to be making it up?
Well, I mean, what do you mean? I mean, what's in it for him to? It would be a clue. What's in it for him to put clues anywhere? It's hard. It's a hard question to answer. I think the context
But
of the sentence, Herculean effort, adding their names, the names being kind of not super standard names, I guess. I don't know. I like the idea, and I like the idea of him alluding to it in interviews to draw attention to it just enough. I don't know. I just that's my gut, I guess,
Okay.
more than anything else. That's my gut.
It might be worth go back, watch a couple of these interviews again, look for the references to the researchers in the book, and let's talk about this further, but not tonight. Okay. Excellent email from Kid Lush. And I think it's a good example of pointing out, even though something might be super obvious to one person, that it might have been completely missed by another person, such as myself. Like, I didn't give a second thought to the researcher names in the postscript, but having it pointed out again, it does seem very suspicious. Those names are very odd. So anyway, I think that's super helpful. Don't assume everybody is tracking the same things. So always be aware that maybe if something is super obvious to you, other people might not know about it. So send it into the mailbag so we can discuss. All right. Next is also a hybrid. I mentioned Patch from the Discord. They also provided an interesting nugget regarding the butterfly symbol that we think is in the front of There's Treasure Inside on the copyright page. So let me just pull up the image that Patch sent over real quick here. So Patch said that this symbol, you guys can see that okay?
Yep.
This symbol is a Hopi petroglyph. And that looks very similar.
Oh,
it does.
Patch was saying that there's multiple of these on some petroglyph sites around Hopi land. So I haven't done the research to find necessarily where this particular image that Patch sent was from. But yeah, it looks very similar to the signature / image / pictogram on the copyright page of There's Treasure Inside.
So we don't have any indication of like what this would mean symbolically.
I'm assuming it's also a butterfly, but no, I don't have any additional information. Like I said, I haven't done a deep dive into this yet, but I thought it was worth sharing.
Yeah. Yeah, that's good. I mean, that's certainly the closest, like, I don't know if how it was found, but I would say like a closest reverse image search of anything that I've seen.
Mm-hmm.
It definitely, I like obviously that it's Hopi, but just visually it lines up too.
Yeah, super cool.
That's a nice find.
Yeah, that's
Alright.
a really good find. That's one of my favorite ones yet.
Bryn, you have a mailbag.
Yes. So a couple episodes ago, I had talked about, I think this was Horseshoes and Hand Grenades, about how I was interested in the release date of the book and if those numbers, that date had any significance to being a clue. So we kind of talked about the original release date and then the book got postponed. So we looked into that new release date as well. We had talked about how we thought if there was a clue hidden in the numbers and the date, it probably would have been more significant to the original release date. Anyways, all that being said is kind of landed at, well, there's probably not much to gather from these dates. So this is from, oh boy, Kristin. And she said, I was listening to the latest episode and wanted to share an observation about the release date delay, specifically the pushback. I live very close to Asheville, North Carolina. Yep, the location mentioned in the Appalachian Footpath chapter. This region, Western North Carolina, Southwest Virginia, East Tennessee, and the Great Smoky Mountains National Park, was heavily impacted by Hurricane Helene's landfall. The storm hit our area early the morning on September 27th. Later that day, JCB announced on Instagram that the book's release date was being pushed back. I've wondered if the so-called supply chain issue might actually relate to assessing the status and accessibility of one of the boxes after this unexpected natural disaster. The flooding, landslides, and downed trees were so significant that several trails and landmarks are still closed, some in spots that people are interested in for the Appalachian Footpath box. Other areas saw less damage or were only temporarily inaccessible while roads were cleared, reopening within days or weeks after the storm. That's basically it. So she says she keeps going back and forth on if JCB kind of created this delay himself to give himself the opportunity to go out and check on a box to make sure it was still accessible, or I don't, whatever. Just wanted to make sure that everything was okay. Move it, who knows, depending on the outcome of the storm. So this totally never would have crossed my mind, which I wanted to bring it up here because I think it is really interesting because the timing is pretty remarkable if you think about him announcing it later that same day. So do you guys have any initial thoughts?
I think it's a pretty interesting theory for sure. We're doing our percentages. I would be on the lower end of that's why the release was delayed. Certainly, I don't think it's high likelihood in my first blush at this, right? I haven't thought about this much. But it's certainly a reasonable idea. I just don't know why he would do it for this one box. I mean, he has to know that there's things that can happen to the other boxes, and it's going to be super dangerous for him to go travel anywhere really and think people might recognize him and follow him, right? At this point.
So my one thought is like, did he feel like he had a window of opportunity to do this because the book hadn't been released yet, and so no one really had eyes on him? But
yes,
we do know that like book excerpts were out, people were aware of the book, so I feel like maybe he still would have thought eyes would be on him at this point.
Yeah.
Tell me again the duration between when he announced that the book was going to be delayed and when the original release date was.
oh man, it was, I think it was pushed back a few weeks, right? Like it was originally, it was like, I think two
Yeah,
to three
but
weeks.
so he announced
October
it.
to
What was the
November.
duration between when he announced it's going to be delayed and when it was supposed to originally been released?
I don't know if I know that information.
I don't know what you're asking. So from the time the storm hit until he announced that it was being delayed,
No, from the time he announced it was going to be delayed, how long was that before it was supposed to just be released the first time originally anyway?
I'm not sure.
Yeah, maybe we don't have that information. But my thought would be if he announced that it was delayed right after the storm hit, I would think that he would like go check on it and see that it could still release it before. It just seems very quickly to have made that determination that, oh, I need to delay the book release. I feel like he'd have like maybe a span of like a few days where he like goes to try and find it, realizes, oh no, I can't go in this area, kind of thinks about it for a minute and then delays it. Versus,
Yeah.
yeah, I just feel like there'd be more of a time delay there, I guess, in my mind.
And I guess too, maybe my hesitation would be that if the storm hit that morning and he started to have fears, I would be, I guess, pretty skeptical that he would be able to like circle back with the publisher and make that big of a judgment call
Yeah.
between him and the publisher by later that afternoon to confidently say like we're going to push this back.
Yeah.
I'd imagine there's a lot that goes into that
Yeah,
release
and I
date.
think if he's pushing it back, so I think he needs to check on it, right? First thing, if it's there, he doesn't push it back, and if it's something's wrong, he pushes it back. But then it's like, is he changing the hiding spot? And if so, I feel like it's going to take more than the month or so it was pushed back to make those changes, right? I don't
Yeah.
know. I guess my big takeaway is ultimately upon first hearing that theory, it seems like, oh, that's really interesting and something worth looking into. But the more I think about it, the more it feels like it kind of falls apart a little bit.
Yeah. I'm trying to find the original release date again. I can't remember what it was. Because the storm, she said, was September 27th.
And the original date was sometime in October.
So
And then
October
it got pushed.
21st.
Okay. And then it got pushed to November 10th, 14th, something like that. Right.
Yeah, it's just
So,
hard to picture a series
anyways.
of events where he makes that significant of a decision in one day after the storm hitting.
Yeah.
That's not so significant that he can still fix everything in a month. It just, yeah, it's hard to picture that series of events.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Agreed.
that's fair. I guess, yeah, I initially I was like very interested I'm still very interested by this. I think like you were saying, Blake, the reality of it, I would be lower on the scale, but I would not rule it out completely.
Yep. All right. Next message is from Mehgann. Mehgann had emailed us about the misspelling of Untar from chapter 4, I believe. Actually, now I'm not sure. I don't have my book nearby, which is a big mistake. But the chapter about Shavin de Huntar, yeah, that's a little bit later, certainly. That's where page 90 is, right? Oh boy. She had emailed about the misspelling of Huntar, and one of the cases was, it was, at least in the first edition book, it was spelled Hauntar, like the Pokemon, right? And I had mentioned that we had talked about that before, and I don't remember if we talked about that on the podcast at some point or not. But I told her we were super excited about it because of the Pokemon connection, and then also let her know that in later editions of the book, it's all been fixed. So Shavin de Huntar has all the spellings have been fixed and are uniform now, so it's not a clue. And then she gave me a nice rant, which I asked her permission to make sure she was okay with us reading it, because I told her, I'm like, I think this sums up a lot of good points and is a good level set for maybe how a lot of people are feeling about the hunt. So I'm just going to read it off because I thought it was a really, really well written. I think this is definitely a topic for debate. But at what point are some of these corrections clues, and at what point are they actual typos? If we are on an analog adventure in a digital world, shouldn't we be just using the book and referencing the TTI official website for news on typos? I honestly hate that JCB is using multiple platforms of interviews to update typos. Shouldn't we all have one source for this type of thing? His official website lists typos and claims anything else will be listed there. I can't imagine it's that hard to update. If he really wanted to, he could easily update the list of typos. So why not do it? Anyone not following all of these channels, podcasts, Discord, Reddit, etc. would be at a disadvantage. JCB has claimed in interviews to want to be inclusive. The official list on the TTI website should be, in my opinion, the ultimate reference point for typos. Is 5.5 versus 5.5 a clue no matter what? So he just says, might as well fix it. Is Huntar close enough to Haunter? So might as well fix it. Does JCB think he has to address these things so as not to give things away, but assume they're close enough for anyone diving deep enough to pick up on? We can't be expected to buy a regular book and then get the ebook just to get the right info. I think he is still struggling with how to address clues being called out. What would you do if your clues were called out? Would you fix them and hope people still found the clues in them? Would you list some typos and not others? JCB says he wants to think like Fenn in chapter 24. How does JCB's mind work? How would your mind work if you created clues and typos and then were called out multiple times? I think we need to stay open to some typos that are fixed being actual clues. End of rant.
Amen to the first 75% of that rant. Yeah, he's got it totally bothers me that he set up an area on his website that says, hey, if there's typos, I'm going to list them here.
Right.
And I mean, we referenced that like episode 1.
Yep.
And they don't have like dates of when it's been updated, but it hasn't been updated in
a
long time.
6 months at least. Yeah.
It's like I get it would even be less upsetting if he just didn't do that at all. But the fact that he set up the place for it and said, hey, if you think you have found a typo, look here and I'll tell you if it's been found or not, or been like acknowledged as a typo or not, and then just doesn't do it.
Yeah, how come he hasn't hired a researcher to go in and just update that list one time through? I mean, there's obviously been changes that have happened across these different versions of the book that have been released. Both the ebook, which has a lot of the typos changed, and the later editions of the print versions have a lot of the versions of the typo changed. Like Emma Jam on Treasure Hunt with Us showed that 5.5 is now 5.5 correctly in the Pokemon chapter, which has been not changed for the first 4 editions of the book. So it doesn't make any sense.
It's so honestly, I feel like it's very unfair.
Yes.
Agreed. So here's the thought that's going through my head right now. Looking at it from his perspective. So say he realized, he released the initial book, said, hey, look on my website, we're going to post if there's typos. Mm-hmm. And then immediately realizes, oh no, I've made a mistake, because now if anyone calls out something that was a clue, like publicly, and I don't update it on my website, everyone's going to know, okay, that was for sure meant to be a clue and it wasn't a typo.
Right.
So I see how that's an issue. And then, now playing
But what's the issue in that?
Hold on. Playing devil's advocate to the devil's advocate now. Then you think, okay, so just if you're JCB, you just say, hey, I'm only going to, update it if someone sends me an email to this official email account that says, hey, I found a typo here, right? So then that way you can be like, okay, someone posted it on some Discord channel. It's not my job to go track that down. And then it's kind of more of a one-way, less visible, here's all the things that have been checked. So that would be my first solution as JCB. But now playing devil's advocate to the devil's advocate to the devil's advocate, now if he does that, he's getting 10,000 emails a day, right? Because everyone has to individually check every typo that they find.
Right.
So I see how there's like all of a sudden you think it's all an easy thing to do, but then it becomes kind of not an easy solution if you're really worried about giving away clues based on like deductive reasoning logic, right?
Yeah. So we need to just send a test email to the media team at Treasure Inside and say, I think there's a typo in the Pokemon chapter. It says 5.5. And then let's see if that website gets updated. It might be the thing where it's like everybody thinks everyone else is doing it, but they actually have never gotten the emails about it.
I don't think that's the case.
I don't think that's the case either, but alas, we could do a quick experiment for sure. All right. So
yeah, I mean, to answer another one of her questions though, like I guess I personally don't think that he would update what was a clue to update it as if it were a typo in a future edition.
I totally agree with that.
To try to reconceal that it was a clue. Like if it's found,
no, yeah,
it's been found, and
yes.
like you can't take that back. And I think like if someone were to reveal a clue, say 5.5, and that's like now out in public, and people are like, oh yes, that's a clue. That's just how this works. Like that's literally what like this community is doing, is trying to bring these clues to the surface. So you can't like retroactively try to edit what you're doing. So that I'm definitely out on that.
Yeah, 100%. It's just there's such little solid information to grab onto in this whole process as it is, that if you start making assumptions like, oh, GCB might list something as a fixed typo that really was a clue to begin with, it's too much.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, like we just said, it's too hard to track the typos as is. I mean, I would leave it at that.
All right.
Yeah, I do wish there was some other method in place right now, though, for typos for sure.
Right. All right. So yeah, excellent message for Mehgann. I think she summed it up quite nicely with that email. It's like put a lot of thoughts that maybe a lot of people have into words there, just for discussion purposes. Go through them. All right. Let's dive into Discord detectives. All right, first Discord detectives is from Huli, one of the moderators of Calazar's Grand Adventure Discord. Huli does probably not get enough shout outs on this podcast. They always post really interesting information and are on the pulse of a lot of treasure hunts, including There's Treasure Inside. Huli posted a really cool screenshot of an Atlantic, something from the Atlantic, the publication The Atlantic, that I want to share with everybody. I won't go into it in too much detail, but I want to make sure people are aware of it. Just because I know Bryn particularly likes the wordplay stuff, and this was a pretty interesting reference from The Atlantic. I don't know how old it is because it's written on, or it's printed out on a sheet of paper here. It looks a little bit worn. But what it is it's a list of different ways that you can use wordplay. And so I thought this was a pretty interesting reference, and I sent it immediately to Bryn because I know she likes this kind of stuff. But for example, double definitions. The simplest kind of additional hint in a clue is a second definition. I know we've been thinking about that a lot, Bryn. Anagrams. A clue may show you what the letters of the answer would look like when scrambled. Also giving a signal word such as mixed, aimless, or fractured. So I thought that was cool. Think about context of other words around it that might hint at something being an anagram.
Hmm.
Hidden answers. Sometimes the answer will be hidden inside a longer word, such as plead is tucked inside apple a day. Look for signals such as caught in, buried in, part of, housed in. For example, cat could be clued as lover of birds imprisoned inside Alcatraz. There's homophones. Certainly, we've been thinking about that a lot. Charades. The clue may break the answer into two or more convenient parts and define them sequentially, as in the game of charades. Farming breaks into far and Ming. Far as in remote, Ming as in the Chinese dynasty. And could be clued as agriculture in remote Chinese dynasty. So anyway, whole list of different wordplay things. I think these are probably related to like solving a crossword puzzle, for example, is kind of what this article is about. But if we think about it in the context of there's treasure inside, there's potential for wordplay, I think, in there based on what we know about JCB and his love for puzzles. So anyway, I thought this was a really cool resource that Hooli posted. So shout out to Hooli. Any questions or comments about this?
I think it's a good reminder that there's a lot of different types of wordplay, because I think it's really easy, especially within this Pokemon box, to get stuck on like the homophones.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, right here, blue for bear, which sounds like bear. So, I mean, we have bear in the chapter itself. So I think when you start looking for one type of wordplay, you can get so laser focused on that this is a wonderful way to like take a step back and try to look at, okay, well, what are the other types of wordplay that are in play as well here?
Right.
Yeah. So I think that's a huge part of why this chapter takes so long. There's just so many layers, like, and it's truly like a word by word dissecting, word by word. So when you have to kind of dissect through all these different types of lenses, I feel like it's pretty daunting.
Mm-hmm. Cody, are you a
But
big wordplay guy?
I got really into crosswords for probably a year or year and a half. I had the New York Times subscription just for the crosswords.
Mm-hmm.
I could normally get Monday and Tuesday, and then most of Wednesday, and that's when it started to get too hard for me. But yeah, I like the idea of wordplay. It always amazes me, like even reading through what you've got up on the screen here, some of these hints and like the thought process behind them is just like amazing that people could even come up with some of those.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I think that, Bryn has come up with a lot of stuff for Pokemon Box that's like this. And so I think it's a really good reference for that box. And I think that there's probably quite a bit of this kind of stuff in that box. I'm bought into that at this point.
That's
Nice.
good. We would be in big trouble if I was far off on that.
You're off the team. All right. Next, Discord detectives, if you guys are ready.
Ready.
All right. There was a message in the Mysterious Writings Discord from Stacy Toon. Has anyone noticed that the handwritten picture on page 123 is missing a passage? So page 123 is Thoreau's
Fire.
That is a page or two out of Thoreau's journal, correct? That's
Yep.
one of the treasures in the treasure box, one of the treasure boxes. So Stacy says, has anyone noticed that the handwritten picture on page 123 is missing a passage that speaks about the moon's wisdom and ability to inspire? It looks like the original journal entry, but if you look it up, you find that it must be a cut and paste with a missing portion.
So I'm working on another solve
Oh,
that this like really plays into. So I'm very interested in this one.
yeah, I thought both of you would be interested in that because the moon especially because of the moon part of this. I've just never dove into that because I honestly can't read a word of what is in that writing. It's too cursive-y.
So
Yeah, I can't either, but I do think that there's probably a lot of references online where they've translated it to something more legible.
To plain text, to courier.
So I remember when we went through this chapter, I compared journal entry picture in whole. I compared that to where you get the huge zoomed in picture of it at the beginning of the chapter, I think.
Yeah,
Like there's two
exactly.
references that you could cross reference in the chapter itself, and I did that, and they were identical. So it's funny to me that I never thought maybe I should reference this against
Real life.
a real life
A different
official
reference.
image of this.
Yeah.
Um,
So I have not
That's
fact
amazing.
checked. I have not fact checked this at all. So anyway, because of the moon connection, because of what we think, the potential of photoshopping, things like that are, I think it's worth a second look based on this comment.
Yeah, no, and I think that seems very clever to me. Like if that were correct, I kind of like it. Um, Especially because, sorry, you said this was page 123.
Yes.
Especially because we have it so large. Like it just seems like it kind of is hinting at look into this closely.
Mm-hmm.
So can you say again what how she thinks this was manipulated? Something was copy and pasted over something else?
Yeah. Has anyone noticed that the handwritten picture on page 123 is missing a passage that speaks about the moon's wisdom and ability to inspire? It looks like the original journal entry. But if you look it up, you find that it must be a cut and paste with a missing portion.
So like a line was taken out and then everything was shifted back.
Something like that. And then they say
I love it.
looks like JCB is at it again with his method of omission to bring attention to something, like the page 90. The fact that he didn't call Joy's Serenade by name in the table of contents and calls Joy's Serenade, quote unquote, the long poem at the end in his last interview.
I really like that.
I like a lot of things that are being
I mean,
said right now.
and I think like we have not fact checked this, but it seems like a very easy thing to do. And if you could just prove like that's correct, I think that is huge. I think that's a huge find. Especially because like what the line she's saying isn't right. Even if it seemed random, it's still a great find, obviously.
Yes.
But the fact that it also then ties in with the moon just really like emphasizes to me that this is correct.
Yes, and I think Stacy may be a gentleman.
Oh, sorry. Sorry.
It's okay.
Stacey.
I'm looking at the picture here. Cool. I'm glad I got a spidey sense that would get your guys' attention, both of you, so I'm very happy about that.
That almost wants to pull me out of Pokemon box to start looking into images. I mean, I don't think if that's like a method he's using I'm not every picture is going to be used in that way, but
Right.
it's clever.
Yeah,
I like it.
mean, we think photo manipulation is fair game because of the magnifying glass symbols that we've talked about. Do we have other examples?
I mean, when he talked about creating the AI images and then editing those himself to get the result he wanted, I think also kind of opened up more confidence that he would have then been editing other images that he didn't create through AI or himself.
Right.
To create specific clues as well.
Yeah, I remember we had a very extensive conversation in one of our earlier episodes, some months ago at this point, about we kind of compartmentalized photo manipulation of this kind of like hand drawn stuff versus would he manipulate actual treasure pictures?
Yeah.
So this would be him manipulating an actual treasure picture, which is in my mind different than what we had talked about a lot in some of our other episodes as well, like manipulation of the AI images, which seems less.
Right.
I don't know what word I'm looking for. Just very different.
It is.
Two different kind of thought processes.
Yeah.
But anyway, my gears are turning.
All right.
I got things to look into now.
All right.
I'm very excited about that email. And I even like I'm also really like the idea of the clues by omission. I really like that a lot.
Yes.
And if we can start picking up on that as kind of a theme.
It's into our
We had another, what was the other kind of omission with the Jackie Onassis, like intentionally leaving out, not using the name Kennedy, or there was something with names in that chapter that was like argued at one point being intentionally omitted.
Mm-hmm.
Like why weren't they calling him by a certain name?
I think
JFK or something.
Was that the Stone Cold Nuts theory that was talking about
I think it
that?
was.
Yeah.
I think it was. Yeah.
So yeah, there was an interview with Stone Cold Nuts on There's Treasure Inside Edition a few episodes back. That I think that was one thing that was brought up in relation to JFK. They called him John or James Kennedy, whatever his real first name was, instead of calling out JFK or John F. Kennedy. They never called him that. Yeah. Good catch there.
Yeah, I think when we originally had our conversation, I remember I was pretty confident at the time that Jon Collins-Black would not have manipulated the actual artifact images themselves, because to me, it's like he's hyping up these pieces so much for their historical value. It almost felt like disrespectful is not the right word, but like I didn't think he would be altering them because of that. I think I have since strayed away from that a bit. And if this is the case, then I'm obviously all out on that.
Yeah. I was going to mention that you've really flip-flopped on your original take when we had that original conversation.
Yeah. I mean, for good reason. I've been providing good reason to change my stance on that.
I agree. I think I had the same take as you originally. And yeah, I'd be pretty sold too.
Yeah. Amazing. Another 10 out of 10 mailbag.
That was not a mailbag.
That was a Discord.
Detective.
Never mind.
That's public information.
I'm then offended it wasn't supplied to us. Good. I'm very happy you found it. Thank you for finding it.
No problem. All right. Let us wrap up with a few coincidences of the day. Cody, you can
I
start.
think I'll do I have two that I will do first, because word on the street is that yours is either good or thought-provoking or something like that.
It's interesting.
Interesting. All right. Mine are not interesting. So my first one is very short and sweet. Maybe not even sweet. Very short. So when I was doing my looking for word frequencies in the book, which is something I did quite a bit of during when we were looking into the butterfly stuff, looking for how different words come up in the book. I don't even remember how I came across this, but there's one word that came up like way more than I expected it to. And then also I feel like 3 of the main times it came up were like in kind of those kind of JCB-esque word
Quips.
sentences, quips, where they like seem to be like inserted for just out of the blue.
Yeah.
Anyway, the word was milk.
Really?
Yes, milk. And there were three references to Milky Way, which totally expect. They're all in the space chapter. Okay. But then there's on page 20, he's got home phones were rotary and screwed into kitchen walls. Milkmen still left morning deliveries of bottles at people's front doors. Then page 116, he's got, there's a good chance the catchphrase "be like Mike" exists somewhere in your brain between "got milk" and "once you pop, you can't stop."
Interesting.
And then page 184, what did Amalthea feed baby Zeus? Goat's milk, of course.
Hmm.
So, I mean, this is
Oh, that's interesting.
99.9% chance that it's just like, oh, this, like, I would not, I'd expect 0 to 1 references to milk in the book. And it just happens to be like a handful. And it just happens that those three I feel like are particularly worded where it's just like, kind of those, I don't even know how to describe them, but very like JCB little quips where the milk part just seems like inserted.
So
So
it's like milk 6, butterfly 0. Very interesting.
Yeah, exactly. I'd expect much more butterflies than milks. So again, I think it's totally a coincidence of the day. If milk ends up being part of the solve, though, you heard it here first.
All right.
I did a little bit of looking into it, and the only thing I came up with that seems kind of relevant is that milk's kind of like in a lot of cultures, and I guess logically, just like the origin of life, right? Like mother's milk kind of thing. So that could be thematic in some ways. But other than that, just kind of interesting that milk came up in so many quips.
Mm-hmm.
I'm very surprised by that.
Yeah. Seemed very inserted. So, and then my other one, if you want to pull up my picture called LHC,
Sure.
Blake.
Yes.
So Alice has always been in the back of my mind ever since we did the chapter 3 thing. Just trying to remember off the top of my head, it was the multiple references to the phrase New Horizons, and then some other like Alice in Wonderland type stuff going on. And I had found that on that spacecraft, they had some like main equipment named Alice.
Mm-hmm.
And the whole Alice thing has just been in my mind for a while. So I was listening to some other non-related thing the other day, and it was talking about the Large Hadron Collider, and it referenced that one of the experiments was called Alice. I was like, oh, that's interesting.
Mm.
And then I looked it up, and there's a list of experiments there. And just kind of immediately off the top of my head, I made like a bunch of connections all at once.
Hmm.
And none of them are great. Can you zoom down a little bit on that?
Oh, yeah.
On that picture? Okay, sweet. So I mean, again, this is a coincidence of the day, not a horseshoes and hand grenades. So it's all just very coincidental. But I saw that list because I was looking at Alice to see if I could make any more significant connections. I mean, Atlas feels very like road mappy. Then there's an experiment called Totem, which felt like maybe like a Hopi connection potentially.
Mm-hmm.
Then there's the Moedel, but the capital letters just spell metal. And we had like the couple different Olympic gold medals.
Wow.
And then, so I started to get a little bit excited at that point. And there's the one called Phaser,
Mm-hmm.
which made me think of the Scotty picture from chapter 1,
Yeah.
Star Trek. And I looked into that a little bit, but I don't think it's a phaser. I think it's a communication device and some other measuring stick thing. I actually spent too much time trying to figure out what was in Scotty's hands, but I don't think it's a phaser. But those are kind of my immediate connections. I was like, oh, it just felt very coincidental, and I got excited about it for a second. I couldn't find much more beyond that. Did a little bit of thinking. I mean, Large Hadron Collider is located, I think, in Switzerland and France, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But I thought maybe it's something where I know it's like really big, like miles long, I think.
Right. Yeah.
So I was thinking if it was something we could like overlay
Yeah.
with like those experiment nodes, something on the US to like the same scale, that could maybe lead to something, but I don't know. Not even strong enough stuff to make it a horseshoes and hand grenades. Just a kind of an interesting coincidence of the day that all those things seem to line up without ever even cracking the book open. Just all off memory.
So that's pretty good. I think like that. I agree that it is coincidence, but the fact that you are able to find that many things pretty quickly and somewhat obviously is also so discouraging to me. Like
it is discouraging.
and I go through this so often with Pokemon Box where like I'll make a connection and it seems so good and strong. And it's like what Blake said though. Like not all the things on my board can be true. I don't think. Like there's just no way.
Yeah.
But they all seem so reasonable. And so it's like discouraging it's discouraging in the sense that like you can be making what you feel such strong connections, and then it will be coincidence at the end of the day.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
what you're describing is very similar to one of the first thoughts I ever had when we got into treasure hunting, and we were like an episode or two in. That one of my biggest fears, either as a treasure seeker or a treasure hider, would be that with thousands and tens of thousands of people trying to solve your hunt, that when you end up revealing what your solution is, that someone has come up with a better solution or using your same clues.
Yeah.
Because it just feels like there's so many options there. The more it's like the monkeys with the typewriter thing, right?
You've
Like
crowdsourced
just,
a
yeah,
better
exactly.
solution. Yeah, it's interesting.
Exactly.
All right.
All right, Blake, let's hear your big coincidence of the
I
day.
mean, mine is on par or less than your last one about the Large Hadron Collider, unfortunately. But I was still.
Is it better than milk?
The yours are both better. Darn it. All right. We'll have Bryn be the judge. So
I can end with one that's guaranteed worse than both, so that
Okay.
will make you feel better.
So I was looking into a 36,000 foot view. So I'm kind of obsessed with what that means, and I still don't know. So I was thinking, well, Mount Everest is not that high, but I wonder if there's other mountains somewhere in the solar system
Oh.
that. Oh, thank you.
If it's on the moon, I'm gonna lose my mind.
It's not on the moon. So there is one other mountain somewhere in the solar system that is 36,000 feet high. And its name is Maxwell Montes. Maxwell Montes. And it's on Venus.
Is it exactly 36,000?
It's not exactly 36,000, but that's the estimated height from the data that's been collected so far.
Okay.
So it's
But
located.
it's not like it's. Sorry to interrupt. Just want to make sure. I wanted to confirm it wasn't like, oh, it's the only one that's more than 36,000, but it's really like 45,000. So it
No,
is.
so
like
there are.
right at 36,000.
There's a really big mountain on Mars that's like, I don't even remember how big, 60,000 feet or something crazy.
Oh.
So this isn't the largest mountain in the solar system. Located on Ishtar Terra, the more northern of the planet's two major highlands. Maxwell Montes is 11 kilometers, 36,000 feet in parentheses high. So I thought that was interesting. So Maxwell Montes is named after a gentleman called James Clerk Maxwell. So of course I went to his Wikipedia article. He's a Scottish physicist and mathematician who was responsible for classical theory of electromagnetic radiation. He had theories to describe electricity, magnetism, and light as different manifestations of the same phenomenon. We go down a bit more. He is also known for presenting the first durable color photograph in 1861 and showed that any color can be produced with a mixture of any three primary colors, those being red, green, and blue. That's kind of interesting just because of the color themes we see, particularly at the beginning of the book. However, he is credited with being the first to understand chaos and the first to emphasize the butterfly effect.
Ooh.
So that's the coincidence of the day.
That's pretty good.
I was super
like
excited when I first saw that, much like many of our coincidences of the day, but having the connection to the butterfly effect after we were just talking about it last episode and having that 36,000 view, 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon attached to butterfly effect, I thought it was kind of fun. So that's my coincidence of the day.
That's really good. Ending on a bang with a bang.
Yeah.
Nice.
Thanks. All right, that's all I've got. Bryn, do you want to give your coincidence of the day or save it for the next time?
Well, I wasn't even ever going to tell this one. I was just going to make
okay.
you feel better because I thought yours was a dud.
But it's good.
Okay.
This is really good.
Yeah, yours is really good. So we can end with that.
Okay. All right, that's an episode. Thanks everybody for tuning in. We will catch you guys next week.
Searching for clues, that's why I'm Yeah.